I don't know how he's doing it. He's
Hey everybody, Richard Ranch here from beautiful Tacoma, Washington. I am really not technically savvy. I'm trying the best I can here. I want to switch this thing around so I can point at my cars. So here we go. We did it. Okay, I hope we're up. I'm going to talk today about my recently acquired Nissan Figaro and my little Mazda R360. I'll show you a few of my other cars. This is my Isetta, which is pretty much a show item. We are, this thing spent a lot of time in the LeMay Museum, where we had one of our shows a few years ago. I have an old Model T that I got from my dad, wonderful car. A Mercedes that I bought when I was in my mid-20s. Boy, was I a snappy guy back then. We have a little Isetta back, or Messerschmitt back there. And then we've got this boat anchor that's been sitting idle for many, many years. I also have an NSU Prinz that sits in the back of my van. I didn't get it out today. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the Figaro and how I came to get this car. 2 years ago, I got an unsolicited note in my on a PM on my Facebook feed. It was from a fella in Japan. He said, please send me your Mazda. So the Mazda had been on the internet and kind of a worldwide thing. These are pretty rare. They're extremely rare. This is a left-hand drive, which they only built about 700 of them, and very sought after in Japan, pretty much unknown in the United States. Impossible, completely impossible to get parts here. I relied on people from other continents, such as Australia, and of course the island country of Japan, to get parts, and people were very generous and helpful with me. Hubcaps from my friend Mr. Oki in Japan, sent them to me as a gift. Impossible to find stuff like that. Anyway, I've got pretty much a whole car here, except the motor, which is out of a Subaru 360. So there was no chance for me to get a motor, the proper motor, and all the cooling tins and all that. So this thing's been sitting in my garage for about 7 years. I took it out to one car show. I had to push it to get it off my truck, and it's just one that I just couldn't acquire couldn't get the interest up to finish it. Needs the interior. It came out of a field in Oklahoma. Oops, sorry. Came out of a field in Oklahoma, and it was really messed up. It had a lot of bee nests in it, things like that. So I basically cleaned the car up, and like I said, it appeared on the internet in a few places and got a lot of interest. And this fella in Japan said 2 years ago, send me that car. So I thought he was a crackpot. I paid little attention to him, but I responded. I said, hey, car's not for sale, but I appreciate your interest. Then he said, I'm going to send you a Nissan Figaro, and he shot me a bunch of pictures, and I said, this guy is crazy. This is a beautiful car. And I said, this is never going to happen. And 2 years later, in last March, I get a call from a guy at the Port of Vancouver. He said, your car's here. Please come and take it off our hands before it gets seized by customs. So you get basically 6 weeks to pick up the car. And anyway, so I contacted the fellow in Japan. I said, geez, you actually did it. I thought it was a kind of a Nigerian prince thing, and this can't be for real. But I ended up working with a broker. I got it delivered to Tacoma, all at the expense of this Japanese fella, Dr. Shimoda, a very nice guy. And I guess I'd talk about the Japanese culture here. That I heard a story about a guy. The honesty is incredible over there, and the trustworthiness. This guy sent me this car with the idea that he would get this car in return. But since he sent me this car 4 months ago, I haven't heard from him. So I'm waiting for him to say, hey, send me the little Mazda now. And he's going to come and pick it up, pay all the expenses, and take it off my hands. And I hope it ends up in a museum. But in the meantime, the Japanese culture, the honesty is incredible. I heard about a guy who's went on vacation, came back from vacation, he went to his desk, and there on top of his desk was the equivalent of $3,000 in yen, and it was his paycheck. And his boss put it on his desk a week previous, and it just sat there. All this cash just sat there. Nobody touched it. So you try that around here, and you're not going to last 15 minutes. But anyway, incredible amount of trust by this Dr. Shimoda, and I couldn't be happier to send him the little Mazda, and I hope it ends up being finished properly. I just didn't have the resources or the ability to get the parts, and I kind of gave up on it. But it should be just about able to run if you're willing to run off a two-cycle. It originally had a two-cylinder four-cycle motor, so it's cute. Could be functional. I'm not sure. But like I said, I gave up on it some years ago. And I think that's about, I guess I'll talk a little bit more about this thing. They made very few of these. People do not know what it is. They made them for 1 year only, built 20,000 of them. This car was built in the first of 3 production runs they had. This is car number 2100 and something. Roughly 21,000 miles on it. It's got equates to almost 34,000 kilometers. So very low mileage. And it seems to me that's kind of how they do it in Japan. They just don't do a ton of driving. What I really like about this car is I can drive it on the freeway, completely practical. It's got a heater that works, got a good car stereo, just a lot of advantages to a car like this. For an old guy like me, didn't have it in me to finish this one, so I'm going to turn it over to somebody to hopefully make it right. And hopefully in the future we will see this cute little car in a museum or somewhere belonging to somebody that's going to make the most of it. And there's a guy in Arizona named Glenn Roberts who I kind of leaned on a little bit. He built one of these to perfection. I mean, he took the original bolts and had them replated. And the guy was crazy about it. And so I think that's my story. I'm ready to turn this thing over. I don't have a clock with me, but I'm pretty sure we're less than 10 minutes in. I'll take a look for questions. And if anybody's looking for a Rolls Royce and you got a big tow truck, come and get it. It's ready to go. Make you a hell of a deal on it. Okay, I'm going to stay online and look for, and there's no questions. Oh, I hope we got a good feed here. It looks like from the comments it wasn't picking up very well. Do you have a Messerschmitt? And I said yes. There's the Messerschmitt. There's the little $1,000 car parked next to the $100,000 car. And guess which one's way more valuable? Yeah, the Messerschmitt. Okay, folks, I'm out of things to say. I love the little Figaro. I'm so happy with it. I'm so happy to have a little car that I can hop in and drive in it. It's actually like a real car. Okay, here's a little closer look at the Isetta. This is really nice. I did it to perfection, and I tried to stay authentic. And there's very little on here that isn't 100% like it would have rolled out of the factory, except nicer. Okay? All right, I am about to, was wrong. Well, shoot, you guys. I'm sorry. It sounds like we had a lot of trouble with the video. So I'll walk one more time around and look at that old junk.